This is Interurban Era with another Alta layout update. A lot of people have asked me over the years, how long does it take to build a model railroad? And it reminds me of an old saying my buddy Schultz says, how long is a piece of string? We've marked the 1-year anniversary of constructing the current Alta layout today. Progress in just 1 year was achieved in less than 3 days a month for the last 12 months. It averaged out to about 50 to 60 work days overall. This shows off the remarkable amount of progress you could make on your layout in a sensible amount of free time. My Alta California Railway is a prototype freelance Class 1 railroad connecting the Port of Oakland, California with Mexico on a north-south route. I'm modeling it in 1968, the last full year of steam on the Mexican division. This layout is modeling the area in and around Guaymas and Empalme on the west coast of Mexico. The first Alta layout was demolished on July 9, 2022. After the debris was cleared away, a new layout had already been planned using CAD and hand-drawn plans. The materials were delivered to my workshop on July 15th, and the construction began the next day on July 16th. A combination of wood and steel studs comprise the base, with a custom cabinet to store A-line rolling stock boxes is found below the layout. By August 14th, the foam was cut, glued, installed, and next came the cork roadbed for the main lines. On the 17th came the track. We use Pico and microengineering coated E3 track throughout. The main line is Pico and the sidings are microengineering. The most marked improvement over the previous layout was installing super elevated curves. This was done using the 3D printed wedges from West Hill Wagon Works in the UK. It makes a remarkable difference in both looks and performance, as now even the longest rigid wheelbase steam locomotives and passenger cars can run at full tilt around the layout for testing purposes. This also highlights the double duty the Alta layout has in my workshop. While it's a layout built for my own enjoyment, it's also a rigorous test bed for client projects as well. If it can run on this layout, it'll probably be able to run on anyone else's layout reliably. The main line celebrated its golden spike moment later that day on August 17th as the first main line was complete and a test train which also had the honor of being the last locomotive to run on the former layout. The Little Baldwin VO1000 made its first trip around successfully. On the 26th, the inner main line was complete and wired up. The large transfer table also arrived from the UK and we'll put it together as well. Then it was time to test the track extensively, finding and repairing any issues that had cropped up. I figured it would be fun to test the track using the BLI track inspection automobile. September 5th had the buildings on the layout for the first time as the new town of Esquina entered the earliest stages of planning. Not much else happened in September, but by October the Philips Hue LED light strips were installed below the horizon to give us some remarkably dramatic lighting effects. These early mock-ups of Esquina just show how much it's changed until today. Note there wasn't even a town square in this plan, which would have been a mistake. October 14th was the dawning of a new era as the paint booth arrived fresh from the manufacturer, something my lungs still thank me for. October 22nd was a great day for the Alta as I had a large package of decoders arrive in the mail and mini engines that hadn't turned a wheel in years were finally able to operate. November 6th had the Mesa begin to take shape. Using layer upon layer of XPS foam, we got our first major landform on the layout. Esquina took another form yet again, with a solid block of structures where the square will eventually be. We eventually decided against this since it hides some of my favorite buildings. On the 10th, we had a lot of carving done on the Mesa and a layer of primer paint. December 3rd continued the scenery work on the Mesa and added a little hill above Esquina where all the scratch-built homes will eventually live. On the 11th, we had our first foliage appear on the layout, starting on the Mesa. The hill above Esquina also got a base layer of Sculptamold and paint as well. On December 23rd, I had the time to begin building the variety of homes that adorn the hillside above Esquina. All of them were inspired by real homes in Empalme and Guaymas. Back from the holidays, on January 3rd, I continued to scratch build the homes from styrene sheet, and a lifetime collection worth of leftover doors, windows, and detail parts finally found some use. One by one, each home fit together well and became part of a cohesive and realistic whole. The 10th had us begin to look beyond Esquina and to the brewery and a depot at Empalme. We used a combination of paper mock-ups and assorted surplus buildings to do a massing study for what we wanted it to look like. The goal was to have the brewery really loom over the depot scene and dominate the skyline when we're looking at it from the track from Railroad East. January 12th had us urban planning Esquina in earnest, using paper to cut accurate road widths and figuring out street layouts. While we didn't end up using this road layout either, you can just about make sense of what we landed on later with the town square. This also highlights the iterative process I do while modeling over time. It helps achieve more satisfying results than fussing around in CAD for years before constructing it. Simply making paper mock-ups and assembling it from a variety of angles both saved me time, frustration, and money. January 14th got us a lot closer to a finished hillside of homes, with lots of progress on the structures. We also took time to flesh out where the interurban line would go. At this point, we hadn't committed to which bridge we wanted to choose. It was between either the overpriced ancient Tycho kit or the expensive but finely detailed Custom Model Railroad's Bascule Bridge kit. I'm very pleased to say we went with the CMR kit, and it's been a joy to build so far. While laying the interurban line, we also measured out the house track for the depot so mail and express cars can be unloaded. A massive quality of life improvement arrived on January 21st. LED T8 bulbs and fixtures arrived to finally light the layout properly. These two fixtures are probably half of the final number that'll lie above the layout, but for now they'll provide excellent construction light. Another important takeaway to make from this video is that very few of these were full 6-hour days working on the layout. Most of the time it was less than an hour of work here or 2 hours there while things dried. At the end of the month, it had me fiddling with Esquina some more. The modernist gas station became a fixture on the layout, and the final house on the hill took shape. On the 5th of February, we began to add fine details to the hill above Esquina with scratch-built steps and retaining walls made from discarded railroad ties. Later that week, the first layer of tile grout dirt mixed in with Arizona Rock and Mineral Company pigment went down. It was a success, and more followed the next day. In the middle of the month, the cacti were ready for planting and details began being placed in Esquina. The final, very pink home got a roof and a paint job as well. Since the hill was looking complete, I spent February 19th on a rolling stock project. The first sheet of Alta diesel decals arrived in the mail, so naturally it was time to test them out. I quickly did up a two-face Alco FA shell and got a feel for both the original yellow-green-orange 1946 scheme and the magenta and orange 68 Olympic scheme. Later that month, I boxed up and sold off the first Alta engine, a Walthers SW1, to my friend Ben, who promptly installed DCC and sound into it. February 25th was a landmark day as the first complete Alta steam locomotive, a 440 number 2015, rolled out of the shops properly painted and lettered. In early March, I decided to rebuild a caboose I'd scratch-built back in 2008 to modern standards. In the end, I only kept the windows and the cupola with everything else fresh material. I also began ballasting the photo curve. I used a base of black cinders and then Santa Fe pink granite ballast to top that before weathering it in place. March also locked in the town square for Esquina, and I began in earnest to scratch-build both a Georgian era cafe facing the square and a staircase for the church. At the end of that month, Esquina was looking recognizable with its town square. I also laid some of the interurban line permanently in and then temporarily put up catenary poles I got for $1 at a train show. 3 days later, I put in a slide fence and began to dial in for what I wanted the car barn to look like. This had changed a bunch until I got the new Tillig tram track, which arrived a couple weeks later. By mid-April, the slide fence was done and a friend came to visit to run various equipment on the layout, including his scale train's big blow turbine. On May Day, I finished off the NDM RS1 and I took it for a test run around the layout. On the 13th, most of the ground underneath Esquina was put in and the grass and foliage around the church soon followed. On the 20th, we installed cork row bed for the brewery spur and even added more detail to the scenery in Esquina. Later that week, we followed that up by finishing up the highway into town, and by the 29th, the track was complete. On the 3rd of June, there was a remarkable improvement done to the layout, adding a foam section to finish off the approach off the interurban line into the future car barn. We also gave the church a repaint and some weathering. Alexander put in a garden adjacent to the church as well. The next day was primarily a photographic shoot to get all the photos I'd eventually send off to be published in this month's RMC article on how to shoot compelling videos. You can read this now in the August issue of Railroad Model Craftsman. Mid-June was fleshing out the car barn track edge with the recently arrived Tillig track from Germany, and laying the flex track approach in permanently. The rest of the month was spent doing a variety of structure refurbishing, and of course, the base for the Bascule Bridge. We've accomplished a lot this year, and with your help and support, we've been able to make even more informed decisions about what to build next. Thanks to your Patreon support, I purchased the lights above the layout and the Bascule Bridge that you voted for. I couldn't build this layout without you, so please consider supporting me on Patreon at any level that's comfortable for you. This buys me time I can dedicate to editing videos like this and creating new physical items of the Alta California Railway project for you to enjoy as Patreon-exclusive extras. So stay tuned for timetables, posters, maps, tickets, and other secret items coming your way. This has been Interurban Era. I look forward to seeing you in the comments.